David Miller, thank you so much for taking time out of your busy schedule for this interview today. You are the author of many wonderful books. Your latest book, Expand Your Consciousness, contains many exciting new concepts. And although we won't have the time to cover all of them in this short interview, I would like to just delve into a few aspects of the fascinating and innovative material in your new book. So my first question is, here we are on Earth, living in the third dimension, and you say in your book that the third dimensional body is subject to levels of consciousness that are constricted and contracted compared to the fifth dimension, and that because of this we have a limited lifespan. You say that in the third dimension you are subject to certain levels of programming regarding how long you are going to live and what type of condition your body is going to be in as you age. Could you comment on this?
Yes. Well, first, we have to consider what I call the cultural input into our consciousness. We live in a civilization that basically programs us to live a certain number of years, to think a certain way. Even if we look at the Bible, we find that many of those older patriarchs were living hundreds of years. So the question is, what is the true age limit of our body? Is it really 70 or 80 years? Is it 150 years, or is it more? Because consciousness is part of a mental program that in part we receive from our parents, we receive from our society, we receive from our culture in general, then we find that there are imposed limitations in how long we think we're going to live. If you think about expanding consciousness and the fifth dimension, then you think in terms of infiniteness rather than limitations. You think of expansion rather than constriction. Now, the idea of constriction can also be focused. And it is true that in an animal-like world where our ancestors lived, it is important to have a focused and constricted consciousness. But we're entering a new era which allows us to have expanded consciousness, and therefore the programs that we are mentally using for our age limitations can be expanded.
Well, and with regard to computers, you say that the computer will be able to read your mind. You talk about the merging of your consciousness with the computer's consciousness and say that this interaction will produce a superintelligence powerful beyond our imagination. Could you elaborate?
Well, first, let's look at the simplified biofeedback phenomena. The biofeedback phenomena is basically hooking up your body to an apparatus that gives feedback to you. It could be feedback in terms of your heartbeat, your pulse, or even whether or not your eyes are dilating. The computer technology is doubling every year or two, and now we already have such things as touch screen, or we have computers that are able to be sensitive to your eye movements. And eventually, the technology is developing to the point that the computer and you are interacting. It's important to consider that our computers are based on our minds. And many of the concepts that are used in computer technology, such as programs, actually are excellent descriptions of how our subconscious works. We are given programs by our parents and by our culture and society on how to think and how to act. On a psychological level, this also includes very basic ideas of self-esteem. But in short, I want to say that we are evolving where the mind and the consciousness are interacting with the computer, and this is a phenomena that occurs in all higher dimensional beings in the galaxy.
Is it going to be discovered that artificial intelligence can have consciousness? That is, matter, a robot can have consciousness?
Well, I don't think that artificial intelligence will include the consciousness that you are referring to. Consciousness is a very difficult term to define, even though we all seem to know what it is. And the best definition that I have found for consciousness is the concept of meta thinking, which means you are aware of what you are thinking, or you are aware of what you are feeling, you are aware of yourself. In the concepts that I'm talking about, we have the highest form of consciousness, which is I am that I am. So this type of meta thinking is not possible, in my opinion, in artificial intelligence, because artificial intelligence is based on programming, and there's a stimulus and then there's a response, and there could be certain stimulations to the artificial intelligence that may appear as if it is consciousness, but the consciousness is a special attribute that is found only in higher beings, such as the humans, which I sometimes refer to as the Adam species, the species of Adam. So in conclusion, I do not think artificial intelligence will attain this I am that I am meta consciousness that I just defined.
In your book, you raise many intriguing aspects of time and space that are challenging to us with our third-dimensional mindset. You say that the space-time continuum, as we know it in the third dimension, does not exist on the fifth dimension, that there is no space on the fifth dimension. You say that space is an object that can be manipulated, and that the practice of folding the space-time continuum plays a central role in space travel throughout the universe. You say that when space folds, time becomes non-existent from a third-dimensional perspective. Could you help us grasp some of these concepts?
Well, first of all, it is very hard for us to imagine living in a world without space. And I like to say that the fifth dimension is a world which does not have space as we know it. So in the fifth dimension, when we think of wanting to be with somebody, we are there. But in the third dimension, when we think about wanting to be with somebody, we may have to get into the car, we may have to drive, and then we have to go to their house, and then we knock on the door and go into a room and visit. So when I'm talking about space on the third dimension, I also have to include the fact that we have certain things we have to do to overcome space. But in the fifth dimension, it is more thought-based. So there isn't this space that requires this type of traveling. I mean, could be distinctions between you physically and the person you are wanting to visit physically, but that's a different type of concept than the space that I've just described, which is huge separations between different objects. Now, when we consider the space-time continuum on the third dimension, then we look at it based on what I call linear concepts. That is, you have a beginning and then you have an end. But in the linear concepts, you have to, again, travel. You have to do certain things to travel in distances. But in the higher dimensional expanded consciousness, the space is not based on linearness, but rather it is based on the concept that I call a continuum, a circle, where the past, present, and future interact as a circle. They're not separated. There's no beginning and there's no end. Now, this is very difficult for us to conceive in our own way of thinking. Folding space and time, in my concept, means transcending the linearness so that you have perhaps a visualization that you have to travel in a linear fashion, but then you go into what perhaps can be called hyperspace, which transcends space and these concepts. And then there is an interaction with your thinking and with how you're traveling through time. So this is a brief summary of some of these ideas.
You talk about quantum cohesiveness, known as quantum entanglement in the world of physics. You say that it is not dependent on space or time, and that one subatomic particle can affect another particle no matter what the distance is between them. So it is possible for energy to have an effect on a place, or an energy or a person thousands of light years away. You mentioned that the ancient Egyptians were able to develop many thought patterns and energy fields to connect with the ancient Syrians, thus setting up a quantum cohesiveness thought field. You say the Mayans developed a quantum cohesiveness thought field with the central sun, and that quantum cohesiveness also occurred in Stonehenge. Could you say how this relates to your work in the Group of 40? And also, how quantum cohesiveness relates to your very exciting Planetary Cities of Light project. I understand that you are creating a network of planetary cities of light and that these places are fifth dimensional.
Well, first, let me say that the idea of quantum cohesiveness is a metaphysical concept, and it is a spiritual concept based on some of the modern ideas in particle physics. And particle physics observes that subatomic particles, if they have any connection, and perhaps we can call it cohesive connection, where they were together, then after that cohesive experience, one particle can travel at a distance, but the first particle and this other particle will interact with each other. So this means that every particle that was once together has the potential of being affected by another particle. Now, I use the word cohesive because it implies that they were touching or were together. I use the word quantum in a metaphysical sense because in the straight astrophysics or particle physics, the word quantum can be defined as particles of light or packets of light. But what I'm referring to in a more metaphysical way is quantum is transcending. Like, for example, we talk about quantum healing. And quantum healing means that this healing that transcends the a third dimension and goes into a realm that is beyond logic. So this is the way I like to look at this. And when I'm talking about the Group of 40 project and Planetary Cities of Light, we are talking about the fact that everything in the universe, but in particular, everything in the galaxy is connected. That means that our thoughts, which are subatomic, also are connected with other beings whom we have connections with, whom we are cohesive with, no matter where they are in the galaxy. The idea of the Planetary Cities of Light and the Group of 40 project is based on providing a planetary healing experience so that we can transcend our current drastic problems that are causing this catastrophe and crisis on this planet. So the idea is that we can connect with higher energy in a quantum cohesive way because we have had some contact with them either in this lifetime or another lifetime. And also we can bring in what I would call quantum or miracle-like energy solutions to solving very complex problems which appear to have no obvious or logical solution right now to the third dimensional mind.
You bring up the subject of cosmic memory and cellular memory in your book, and I would like to ask you about this. You say that when looking at the billions of souls now incarnated on this planet, You see how cellular memory plays a major role in some of the conflicts, tragedies, and upheavals happening. You also say that many Earth events occurring now might seem without logic and without reason, yet they do have energy related to cosmic memory. Could you tell us a little more about this?
Well, to talk about cosmic memory or cellular memory, let me first talk about muscle memory in the physical body. Your body records everything that ever happened to you on the earth. So if you had been physically abused, for example, it is stored somewhere in your muscles, and your muscles remember these patterns. The idea of cosmic memory or cellular memory means that there are memories from past incarnations. There are memories from incarnations even on other planets. And therefore, what you are bringing with you into this lifetime, into this incarnation, is not, as they say, a blank page, but rather you have imprints from these other experiences. Now, I agree that it takes time and certain expanding exercises to recall these memories. And when we are growing up, most of us don't have those memories. And even now, as we get older, many of us find difficult to remember. But through certain techniques that I'm using and other people are using, namely the hypnotic trance method, we can access these. Now, how does the fact that there are cosmic memories and cosmic incarnations affect what is going on now on the planet, and how does it help us to understand what is going on the planet? Well, the answer is that we are witnessing a cosmic drama, and that these conflicts, such as technology versus spiritual wisdom, plus the use of planetary resources versus wars and greed, are all types of conflicts and energies that have occurred on other planetary systems before. And in fact, many of us have had incarnations on these planets, and many of us have witnessed these conflicts, and we have imprints, we have cellular memories from these. So in a sense, I could say that the drama or the conflicts and polarizations that you are now seeing on the earth are cosmic, and we have witnessed and we remember these conflicts from our other lifetimes.
You say that spiritual energy began the universe, and that spiritual energy from the universe is coming to Earth. You mentioned that Omega light is one aspect of the spiritual life force that exists in the universe, and that light workers and starseeds can bring down higher vibrations that exist in the universe. Is this the basis of the work of the Group of 40, which you have founded?
Well, yes, the Group of 40 is based on spiritual work and spiritual transformation, and we are seeking methods in which we can bring the higher spiritual energy to the earth so that we can manifest and transform the current constrictions, the current problems, and the current crises, and the current polarizations into a more expanded view. My idea about spirituality is based in part in my study of the Kabbalah, which is known as the Jewish mysticism. And in the Kabbalah, the highest level is the spiritual. You know, we have the physical, we have the emotional, and then we have the mental. But the spiritual precedes everything. And it is the spiritual light that really is the source of creation. And it is the spiritual light which does not follow the normal linearness, the normal logic, and the third dimensional ideas. It's very hard for us to understand that the spiritual energy has no boundaries, and that it operates in a way that's closer to the divinity. Sometimes The spiritual energy is the source of all healings. It is the source of all transformations. And ultimately, it is the source of what I call the ascension, which is the lifting up of our being into another dimension, namely the fifth dimension. Sometimes I've even referred to the fifth dimension as the Garden of Eden. So we are working towards fifth dimensional solutions to contracted third dimensional problems. And we are very focused on expanding our consciousness, because in order to work with these concepts, in order to experience these energies, we have to get out of our normal constricted consciousness and work with an expanded consciousness. And this expanded consciousness is spiritually based, and it is part of our heritage, and it is part of our basic core abilities. So expanding consciousness is reaching into higher levels of our being and eventually working with our soul light. Now, light is another term for spiritual energy, and the beginning of the universe began with the phrase, "Let there be light." So the light workers and star seeds are working to download and to manifest spiritual energies to heal this planet.
Well, it has been very fascinating talking to you, David. And if viewers are interested in reading your book, is it easily available?
Yes, it is available through the book company called Light Technology, and they are on the internet, www.lighttechnology.com, or you could call them directly at 800-450-0985. I'll repeat that, 800-450-0985, and ask for the book Expand Your Consciousness by David K. Miller. The book is also available on Amazon.com, and it is available as an ebook. So if you go to Amazon.com and just put in my name, David K. Miller, you will find the book Expand Your Consciousness.
Thank you so much, David, for this interview.
It's been my pleasure, Christine.